So, Ever After High is a Netflix show. I'm just gonna ignore the aspect of it that this series was like made to be media to like sell products. Um, but anyway, it's a Netflix show, and the concept is high school, for like the children of fairy tale characters, right? Other books as well. I haven't read the book. I read like one of the books when I was younger. So this is just about like the main plot line of the first couple seasons because I haven't even finished them. But I had thoughts watching because whenever I watch something, I always just automatically translate it through my own lenses. And it's a cool concept, I think. And the sort of story of the like, what do they call it? Oh my goodness, I forgot what it's called. The storybook of no, what's it called? Okay, I have to look this up now. Ever After High book. It's like the Book of Legends. Yes, thank you. The Storybook of Legends. The things that yeah. Anyway, that's a very good, like clear metaphor for the whole law versus spirit, technic versus magic kind of thing. Stars. Yeah. I personally like the aesthetic of the show, and I wanted to put like pictures up, but I still haven't found a program that does that easily, and like overlays for Windows that overlays pictures over video and free or cheap and lets me export stuff. So I'm just gonna be using some visual aids. I don't know. Maybe it's fine without pictures. Like I realize that probably most of my audience is not the kind of people who watches Ever After High. Who watch Ever After High. But I am, so here we go. Anyway, the main plot line, I would say, centers around the conflict around the Storybook of Legends, which corresponds to the law and in some sense corresponds to the world of Technic. I have a feeling that never mind, that's a sidetrack. So what the Storybook of Legends does, or what essentially the law does, or what this kind of system does, is it's basically like a tradition, right, that gives the stories that the descendants of these legendary people are then supposed to repeat and just live out again, and sort of repeat exactly, following the letter of the law. And this book, this law, this system, does give structure and stability to the world of Ever After. You know who you are, you know what your role is, you know, even in the end, what your future is. But it gives this structure and stability at the cost of subjecting individual souls and individual people's like personalities and their hearts to just this imposed, in a sense artificial, like imposed external purpose. And of course, tradition is also generally connected with the past and with people of authority, and the original fairy tale figures in this world are basically older and people of authority. And this system of sort of imposed identities and imposed stories and purposes also involves like this dichotomy of good and evil, which permanently enslaves certain realities to evil. And like, so the sort of principal characters are Apple White and Raven Queen. So if you're Apple White, or if you're one of the royals, you you're a good fairy tale character. But if you are one of the, I don't know what they called them before the rebels started, if you're one of the bad fairy tale characters, basically, you, your life, your symbolism, your whole self is sort of exiled and is, oh wait, I was gonna come up here, used to represent evil permanently. So you sort of have to play the role of like the demonized, like other marginal figure to keep the society functioning. Whereas, as I talked about in that short about Unholy, with symbolism, with a symbolic worldview, with a more flexible symbolic worldview, symbolism can always switch and always see things from another angle, and no piece of reality is permanently enslaved to bad and is just like only ever evil. So yeah, that's the state of affairs under the law, under the storybook of legends. Their children are expected to be born into a certain identity, sign off on that, and then you just live it out. And then one of them decides she doesn't like it. She doesn't like it. She wants to be good instead of evil. She wants to rebel against the ways of the forefathers or mothers, etc., etc. And the book ends up eventually in Wonderland. Oh wait, a different color. These were originally fruitcake tins. Some people in my family like fruitcake. Yeah, it's highly suspicious. But so Wonderland is like, in that world it represents the margins, right? And like the chaos sort of realm. Very well, because in Wonderland it's somewhat separated off from the main world, right? And it's like separated off from the main world. Oh, I forgot a character. It's separated off from the main world. Things work differently. There's different rules, etc. But also, Wonderland is represented as being the source of sort of the life and the magic of Ever After. So if those portals and those doorways and connections are cut off, we get the world like dies. And of course, there are some people who belong to that world, and to them, Wonderland makes perfect sense and is like their world, whereas I guess Ever After would be like the weird place. So it flips, right? It goes both ways. But from the perspective of Ever After, Wonderland is the marginal, like, chaos realm, but also the source of magic and, like, life and power. So that goes with, like, matter and, like, feminine imagery and symbolism. So the book ends up in the chaos realm. Oh man. Okay, maybe we could also, if we think of Wonderland or like the realm of chaos as like quote unquote the subconscious, or just more the realm of the heart than the realm of like the rational mind, then we could say that this is something to do, if you wanted to take the whole thing as a metaphor of like finding somebody's identity, once Raven doesn't sign the book, throws everything into chaos, starts questioning things, the book is lost, order is lost, it's lost in like this dream, chaos, potential realm, and then the people have to go into that realm to like try to retrieve it. Well, the ones who want it back try to retrieve it. And yeah, sort of everything's thrown out of balance at this point. And yeah, the law of the book is lost, descending into chaos, etc. And then the plot of the Wonderland like season. Interestingly enough, there's the Queen of Wonderland, or the Queen of Hearts, and then there's like the Jester, who's like the margins of the margins, and like is this super extra force of chaos, and wants to take over Wonderland to make it even worse. Well, maybe not to make it even worse chaotic, because maybe she would actually want to impose order, like a bad order, on Wonderland. I don't know, but that's not the main point. It's just that there is this, so there's within the chaotic world an even more chaotic, small kind of self, individualistic kind of force that wants to, hold up, is that more chaotic? So within the chaos potential realm, there is this individualistic sort of force that is on the margin, because the Jester is a marginal figure that is on the margins that wants to like take over. So she's trying to get the book, because this book has a lot of power, in order to misuse it, in order to sign somebody else's page and like take over somebody else's role, and therefore get all this power like instantly. And the way that this conflict is resolved is that Raven, who was the original rebel against the system, signs the book and gets her full share of like the evil power that she had coming to her from her destiny, and is therefore able to defeat like the Jester. So that is a good example of like, I guess she's over here too. That's a good example of like integrating the shadow, quote unquote. She accepts and takes in and integrates both the oppressive, sort of broken masculine force of like the law of this book, this destiny that's imposing, and also what that involves is taking in all this like chaotic evil kind of magic and power. So it shows sort of both halves of what you could call darkness or the shadow that have to be integrated. Hold up. Scusa. This video is chaos. Oh man, where were we? Anyway, yeah, integrating the shadow. But then by doing that and by accepting those things, she is able to decide how to use that power instead of it's constantly being a threat, and decide how to shape her own destiny instead of that also constantly being an external threat kind of looming over her. So once she has integrated her shadow in that way, she's able to defeat the Jester. She called that? Yeah. And going back to sort of the world versus the outside, order versus chaos, center versus margins thing, this marginal figure in Wonderland is, they like weaken her but don't entirely kill her. So she's spared and is allowed to go back into the world sowing chaos. And that is another exemplification of like integrating death, or integrating the shadow in a similar way as people would like have gargoyles around the edges of, you know, the church, or like decorations and weird monsters and stuff in the margins of the word. And well, speaking of the book and the law, in the margins of the book, illuminated manuscript, you would have like these monsters. So you can never, your system or your language can never completely capture everything. And so having, you know, leaving the corners in of the field, like leaving the borders in of the field, leaving in the, leaving in gargoyles and monstrous and strange figures that don't quite fit in. At the edges is a sort of openness and acknowledgement to leaving open, even I guess leaving open the portal to Wonderland is a similar gesture, is leaving these spaces open, or acknowledgements of that which is outside, which stops, which like keeps the balance and communication between the different realms. Or leaving your enemy, or leaving a force of chaos there, but weak enough so that it doesn't destroy the world. That gets back into the whole self, other ways of communion. So yeah, going into this dream sort of place of chaos, integrating the shadow, subduing chaos, and opening back up the connection, healthy connection between the worlds. Not subduing chaos, what am I saying? I mean, yes, subduing. And then the final well, I think it's final. I haven't watched like the last couple seasons, but basically the final conclusion to what happens with the book is that Raven casts a spell and the book itself gets torn apart, and each page gets like integrated and gets integrated into each living person. So this is literally the movement from like letter to spirit, from law to spirit, and really from a way of like morality and rules to more the internal way of desire and desiring good and fault, and just being able to love God and do as you please, essentially. And this is a synthesis of both ways of like the royal and the rebel way, because the royal way is just like only the book and I want my destiny and my happy ending. The rebel way being no book, nothing, everybody just does their absolute own thing. The conclusion really nicely synthesizes that, because there's still the book, but now it's written in the heart, right, instead of on the tables of the law. So those who want to follow their preordained stories are free to do so, but those who want to change things are also free to do so. That system and that law is now placed underneath free will and the heart and individuality and somebody's desires. So now, to uphold order, it's no longer necessary to submit one's truest self to like this alien authority, into this external, sort of very strict and less human force. And also they say that they do this in order to prevent something happening again, like with the jester, where she's able to just grab this physical book that has all the power and that basically holds their lives and like souls, and just like steal it and steal this part of themselves. So now that the book doesn't exist anymore as an external physical object, it's like inside of people, it's more protected. And I don't find an exact parallel in that if I'm thinking about like Technic and what people can do with it, but certainly there are a lot of ways when the ultimate value in the world is ascribed to some kind of like external legal or like abstract force or system. There are a lot of ways to abuse that. And I mean, I guess you can be corrupt. You can just look the part and conform to the law, but have a bad heart, and that can go unseen because you're conforming to all the things of the letter, and that's what gets worshipped, and stuff like that. But giving agency back to the individual people and their hearts makes abusing more difficult. Yeah, those are some thoughts on Ever After High. It's a cool show. I like it. I think it's fun. I guess some of the lyrics from the theme song that exemplified that whole philosophy, or this whole like conflict and resolution. It's like they told you everything was waiting for you. They told you everything was set in stone. So there's this one way. This is reminding me of Oh Hellos. The truth was a cave on the mountainside, and I'd seek it out until the day I died. How does that start? I do not remember. And the truth was a tool that I held in my hand, and I wielded it and did not understand.